Hollywood figures are absolutely savaging Jeff Bezos and his wildly extravagant wedding celebration, and the criticism isn't merely sour grapes from those left off the exclusive guest list. While some stars are clearly envious, others are genuinely outraged, and many more are labeling the event a tasteless, out-of-touch display of wealth that even prompted protests from local Italians. The public is skewering the affair, and now even fellow celebrities are publicly condemning the couple. Take Charlize Theron, for instance, who seized the opportunity at a charity gala to openly lambast Jeff and Lauren from the stage, remarking, "I believe we might be the sole individuals who weren't invited to the Bezos wedding, but that's perfectly fine, because they are awful and we are awesome." And believe it or not, those were her exact unfiltered words. So what was the full story behind the spectacle that unfolded in Venice? And how did what should have been a private union devolve into such a massive celebrity controversy? Let's dissect the entire situation. Bezos didn't merely reserve a location for his vows. He effectively commandeered an entire Venetian island, repurposing a historic 16th century basilica to serve as his own personal chapel. The attendees were ferried in on gondolas illuminated by candlelight, appearing like cast members in a billionaire's cinematic fantasy. The bride, Lauren Sanchez, showcased several designer ensembles, one of which was a bespoke Dolce & Gabbana cape of such immense proportions that it required its own attendants just for her to move. The aisle, meanwhile, was lined with a thick drab grey carpet. The choice was so bizarre that Twitter instantly drew comparisons to the flooring of a depressing corporate office park. A particularly popular comment online noted, "This guy blew $50 million and still ended up with a carpet that looks like it came from an office supply warehouse." Even the local Italians were unimpressed. Residents demonstrated just outside the lavish event, their chants declaring that the historic city of Venice was not for sale. The situation online deteriorated even further. Memes began to circulate wildly, and TikTok videos relentlessly satirized the dystopian spectacle of such opulence. One observer aptly described it as the result of blending Succession with the Kardashians after you've stripped away every last ounce of taste. And as the internet proceeded to scrutinize every single last detail, a handful of celebrities chose to voice their disapproval in a very public way, starting with Charlize Theron. And she absolutely refused to pull any punches, while the world was still gaping at Bezos's $50 million fairy tale. Charlize Theron opted to publicly incinerate that fantasy on a stage before a captive audience. During a prestigious charity function, Charlize took the microphone and made no attempt whatsoever to be diplomatic. She quipped, "I think we might be the only people who didn't get an invite to the Bezos wedding, but that's okay because they suck and we're cool." And then she delivered the truly shocking line, "Yeah, F them." The audience was left utterly stunned. Online, a debate raged over whether she was being courageously candid or just bitter about being snubbed. One particular tweet read, "Charlize Theron just committed career suicide at a fundraiser, and I have to say I sort of respect her for it." Another user suggested, "She's just furious that Bezos chose Lauren over literally any other woman on the planet." But Charlize's commentary wasn't limited to just Bezos and Lauren. In that very same speech, she pivoted to the political arena, denouncing the rise in gender-based violence, the erosion of women's rights, and the systemic erasure of queer and trans individuals from public life. Some praised her for leveraging her platform to speak on crucial issues. Others condemned her for what they saw as hijacking a serious cause just to take a petty swipe at a couple who, let's be realistic, likely paid her no mind at all. Nevertheless, it was undeniable that Charlize had touched a raw nerve. Her tirade quickly went viral, particularly as people noted that her speech carried a certain venomous edge that made it feel deeply personal. And just when the situation couldn't seem any more surreal, somebody escalated the strangeness by creating an AI-generated rebuttal from none other than Lauren Sanchez herself. At the very moment everyone believed the Bezos wedding drama had peaked, an artificial intelligence version of Lauren Sanchez entered the chat, seemingly from thin air. A deepfake video materialized on the internet featuring a stunningly realistic Lauren Sanchez addressing Charlize Theron's verbal assault. Her delivery was icy deliberate and in a bizarre way rather iconic. In the clip, the AI Lauren declares, "We extended invitations to our friends. not to sideline commentators with their unsolicited opinions. This wasn't some mistake, it was a deliberate move, and her response was even more ferocious. It's quite ironic, isn't it? Lauren Sanchez champions environmental causes while simultaneously accepting enormous paychecks from high-end fashion houses. Please. And though the video was an obvious fabrication, her appearance was unnervingly flawless, and her voice had a subtle, unnatural quality. The public was absolutely captivated, propelling the clip to millions of views within a matter of hours. While some supporters praised it as ingenious satire, others found it deeply unsettling. I'm aware it's artificial intelligence, but it has this eerie feeling of being something she would genuinely say, one person remarked online. And frankly, that very ambiguity was the fuel for its viral explosion. The artificial intelligence did more than just mock Lauren. It peeled back the curtain on the ridiculousness of billionaire public relations, while also posing a far more significant question. In an age where any individual can be digitally replicated, what does reality even mean now? As it happened, this AI-driven takedown was merely the opening act, because the next public figure to retaliate was not playing any games. Rosie O'Donnell arrived on the scene armed with poetry digital alterations and an intensity of fury that caught everyone completely off guard. While the majority of celebrities might have opted for subtly hostile Instagram posts, Rosie O'Donnell transformed into a full-blown poet warrior on her Substack platform. She published a blistering poem targeting the wedding, and she made no effort to soften the blow. She labeled Lauren Sanchez a counterfeit fembot wife, and depicted Bezos as a man who had traded his soul for a life of extravagance. Rosie's words were blunt. The Bezos wedding sickened me. The spectacle of billionaires parading their avarice as the planet deteriorates. The devil must be grinning at all his new acquisitions. However, the most stunning line was when she implicated Oprah, questioning directly, "Is Oprah genuinely friends with this man? How could that be?" And that particular jab is where the situation became exceptionally complicated, because Rosie and Oprah share a long history. Back in 2011, Rosie even hosted a talk show on Oprah's very own television network. Oprah had once referred to her as a partner and a friend, so for Rosie to publicly sacrifice her like that, the audience was completely stunned. Rosie just incinerated a 20-year friendship over a poem a single tweet captured. Another added, "She has a point, but that's still shocking," and the onslaught was far from over. Rosie went even further, sharing side-by-side images of Lauren, insinuating that Bezos had exchanged genuine character for a digitally perfected image. This was no longer about poetry. It was a public assassination artfully concealed in verse. The public's opinion fractured. One camp viewed Rosie as a courageous voice of truth. Another faction dismissed her actions as resentful and gratuitous. Yet the parallel that everyone continually drew had little to do with Lauren herself. It centered on the woman she had succeeded. As Lauren Sanchez paraded through Venice, adorned in couture worth millions of dollars, the online world couldn't resist asking a pointed question. What happened to MacKenzie Scott? And how did we descend from someone like her to this? The reason was simple. While Bezos' new partner was orchestrating a $50 million extravaganza, his former wife MacKenzie was engaged in precisely the reverse. She was discreetly giving away billions, shunning the spotlight of red carpets, and genuinely transforming people's lives. The contrast between the two women was striking, and the public seized upon it immediately. Actress Mia Farrow only intensified the situation by sharing a heartfelt tribute to MacKenzie on social media, hailing her as a genuine role model. In the comments section below, thousands of users disparaged Lauren often without ever mentioning her by name. "That's the woman who deserved the Vogue cover, not the mechanical figure in Venice," one comment read. Another quipped, "One donates her fortune, the other donated her personality." Even Olivia Munn participated in the veiled criticism, responding to Mia's post with a simple, "Truly incredible." It was ambiguous enough to maintain plausible deniability, yet pointed enough to inflict a sting. This went beyond simple admiration for MacKenzie. It evolved into a synchronized effort to highlight what Bezos had lost when he, to borrow Rosie O'Donnell's phrase, sold his soul. And the strategy was effective. Social media feeds were soon inundated with side-by-side comparisons, a poised MacKenzie casually dressed in jeans volunteering at a food bank. Imagine Lauren Sanchez being helicoptered onto a lavish yacht, all while sporting 6-inch stilettos. The public's interpretation was immediate and stark. MacKenzie is the figure society holds in high esteem. Lauren, in contrast, is the one it scorns. And just as the controversy began to subside, another public figure walked directly into the fray, Jessica Alba, and the subsequent fallout nearly decimated her carefully cultivated public image. Of all the famous faces at Jeff Bezos' wedding, Jessica Alba arguably faced the most unexpected wave of criticism. But why? Because her attendance wasn't merely a surprise. To many, it reeked of outright hypocrisy. Jessica Alba is known for more than just being a Hollywood actress. She is also a prominent advocate for Baby2, Baby, a non-profit organization that supplies diapers, clothing, and other vital supplies to children from low-income families. She serves on its board of directors, frequently promotes its work online, and advocates for underprivileged families across the country. So when social media influencer Meredith Lynch called her out for celebrating with billionaires who actively endorse policies designed to slash funding for those same struggling families, the internet exploded with rage. Meredith was unflinchingly direct in her critique. In a video that quickly went viral, she contrasted Jessica and fellow Baby2 Baby board member Kelly Sawyer's posts of luxurious wedding festivities with the fact that back home a significant bill was endangering SNAP benefits, which is the very foundation of the support their nonprofit champions. She essentially asked, "Have you two paid any attention to the news?" Meredith questioned how they could be toasting champagne with the very people creating the problem you claim to care about. The public response was one of sheer fury. A commenter noted, "This is like a firefighter attending an arsonist's birthday party." Another person wrote, "They're passionate about poverty, right up until the invitation reads, Venice." This was so much more than poor optics. It spiraled into a full-scale public relations catastrophe. To make matters worse, neither Jessica nor Kelly has made a public statement addressing the criticism, which only strengthens the belief that they're sorry, they were caught, not sorry for their actions. Yet, while some celebrities were being condemned for their presence, one actress gained attention by doing the complete opposite. Within the vast sea of famous attendees at Jeff Bezos' wedding, one name was conspicuously absent: Eva Longoria. Now, Eva is not simply some distant colleague in the Hollywood scene. She is a long-standing friend of Lauren Sanchez. She was present at the bachelorette party. She has been on the yacht. She is part of their inner circle. But when the $50 million main event finally arrived, Eva was conspicuously missing. Instead of being in Venice, she was seen spending the weekend barefoot on a shoreline while promoting her CNN series, Searching for Spain. And even though she never mentioned the wedding, her followers noted that the timing and choice of location felt almost too deliberate to be a coincidence. Spain, it's worth mentioning, is only a very short flight from Venice. So what was the real story? Was Eva genuinely too swamped with filming, or was this her own form of quiet protest? A tactfully understated declaration that she refused to be associated with the whole spectacle. Because the crucial detail here is that Eva's entire public brand is built upon culture, heritage, and activism. A wedding like Bezos's doesn't quite fit that image, and people definitely took note. It seemed as though Eva assessed the situation and chose to sit this one out. Her silence was more powerful than any scathing caption could ever be. Whether it was deliberate or not, Eva's absence transformed into its own powerful commentary. And in this whole narrative, declining the invitation might have been the most brilliant strategic move of all. However, while Eva was deftly sidestepping the drama, other people were being pulled right into it. The children of Jeff and Lauren, who had been deliberately kept from public view, were suddenly integrated into the wedding's public narrative. Amidst the boundless opulence brewing scandals and celebrity responses, there was one aspect of the Jeff Bezos wedding that remained surprisingly unmentioned: his and Lauren's children. For a man who just produced a $50 million public relations event, Jeff Bezos guarded one aspect of his life with extreme secrecy: his family. You wouldn't find any official photographs or staged appearances on the red carpet. There were no on-the-record interviews, only speculative murmurs. Yet away from the public eye, the children were far from passive attendees. In fact, they held significant roles during the wedding ceremony itself. Lauren Sanchez was escorted down the aisle by her two sons, Nico and Evan. Her daughter Ella took on the role of maid of honor, making a bold statement by opting for a stylish suit over a conventional gown. Lauren spoke glowingly about her daughter's choice, remarking, "Ella has always been an original. She marches to the beat of her own drum." In stark contrast, Bezos's own 4 children from his previous marriage, whom he co-parents with his ex-wife MacKenzie Scott, remained entirely out of the spotlight, a move that was clearly intentional. Sources claimed they were present, yet they were completely unseen. Not a single camera managed to capture their image. Even the most persistent gossip columns came up empty-handed, and in an ironic turn of events, protecting their privacy might have been the most astute move Bezos made throughout the entire affair. As one observer noted on Twitter, "Criticize Jeff all you want, but shielding his kids from this media frenzy, that earns my respect." It marked a singular instance of discretion during a weekend, otherwise defined by its sheer extravagance. This offered a brief flash of humanity within a narrative overwhelmingly focused on lavishness and public condemnation. However, that moment of quiet consideration was fleeting, because while his children were shielded from view, Jeff's closely guarded financial dealings were about to be thrust directly into the glaring spotlight. If the extravagance of the wedding caused some surprise, the details of Jeff Bezos's finances provoked utter astonishment. Because as attendees glided through canals on candlelit gondolas online, sleuths were busy excavating information. They were uncovering precisely how the world's second wealthiest individual manages to sidestep paying taxes in the same way ordinary citizens do. In 2024, Bezos formally changed his primary residence to Florida, a state that notably levies no income tax. Was this a coincidence? Hardly. The relocation was broadly interpreted as a calculated maneuver designed to reduce his obligations to the federal government. And consider this piece of information: between the years 2006 and 2018, Bezos is reported to have paid only $1.4 billion in taxes, all while his earnings soared into the tens of billions. A viral TikTok video put it into perspective that's equivalent to leaving a $1 tip after purchasing a Lamborghini. The secret to this lies in his method of gradually and strategically liquidating Amazon stock in a manner that effectively minimizes his taxable income, all while simultaneously inflating his personal net worth. While perfectly legal, the practice is widely viewed as exploitative, and to make matters even worse, a former employee of an exclusive restaurant shared an anecdote about Bezos dining at their establishment. They claimed he wouldn't even glance at the bill. He would simply sign it, avert his gaze from the staff, and depart. He behaves as if the check is imaginary, the worker recounted, as though money holds no real-world value for him. That observation resonated deeply with the public, because for many onlookers, the wedding seemed more than just costly. It felt completely detached from reality. It served as a stark reminder that a select few inhabit a different universe, one where $50 million can purchase privacy, influence, and the luxury of disregarding consequences. And despite all the online memes and the public protests and the widespread criticism, the most galling part is this: Jeff Bezos appears to be entirely unfazed by any of it. When Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez exchanged vows in their $50 million Venetian spectacle, he likely anticipated the media coverage would celebrate romance, legacy, and opulence. What he got instead was a widespread cultural firestorm. Prominent A-list celebrities began to publicly criticize him. Artificially intelligent-generated parodies spread like wildfire online. The theme of billionaire hypocrisy dominated conversations on every social media platform, and so an event intended as a personal celebration morphed into a very public judgment on wealth, influence, and societal values. The reason for this is that it wasn't merely a wedding. It functioned as a mirror, offering a clear snapshot of a modern dilemma. It showed what occurs when one individual's romantic celebration carries a price tag exceeding what the vast majority of people will earn in their entire lives, especially while employees at his own company reportedly continue to struggle for basic rights, like bathroom breaks. This contrast created a deep sense of unease, and that widespread unease quickly escalated into palpable anger. The AI-generated jokes and satirical videos exploded in popularity. Accusations of billionaire hypocrisy were dissected on every social media feed. Consequently, what was meant to be an intimate affair transformed into a public trial concerning affluence, influence, and fundamental priorities. This was because the event was far more than a simple wedding. It was a reflection, a stark illustration of the consequences that arise when a single person's tale of love comes with a cost greater than the lifetime earnings of an average individual, all while the workforce at his corporation still battles for fundamental dignities like adequate restroom breaks. The disparity made the public profoundly uncomfortable, and this profound discomfort fermented into widespread outrage. The artificial intelligence humor, the sharp clapbacks, and the icy stares from celebrities were certainly not without reason. This was built-up frustration finally erupting, targeting a man far removed from his days sleeping on an office couch. Instead, he sails on super yachts, living completely and utterly above it all. And what of the couple at the very heart of this controversy? Jeff Bezos has remained silent primarily because he can. In his rarefied world, public outrage is simply irrelevant chatter. The scenic boat rides continued, the cameras flashed relentlessly, and the fortune kept on growing. This brings us to the ultimate question. Was this the steep price of love, or the final cost of becoming truly untouchable? Share your own thoughts with us down in the comments section. And if you happen to think this whole drama is over, you should think again.